not Gone with the Wind, but some of these characters have some decent trucks driving by. Hello, internet fans. It's your old pal Rottin Roger DeMarco here from 3bproductionco.com. And this week, we're going to be talking about Fred Olen Ray's 1983 film, Scalps. So here is your plot synopsis. A group of archaeologist students go and dig up some bones and things of Native Americans and piss off a restless spirit of a Native American warrior man. It possesses one of them and goes on a murderous rampage. It's weird. It's a weird movie. So before we get into my overall thoughts of the film, first, let's take a look at
Rottin Roger's Splatter Facts.
We have 8 dead bodies. We have 2 titties. We have 1 lion-headed man thing. We have 1 extremely convincing possession. We have 1 pissed off Indian in blue jeans. We have gratuitous flannel shirts. We have bad day for night. We have slow motion running. We have the old hell drums. We have work shed ADR. And we have possessed rape. The methods of death include but are not limited to decapitation, throat slit ×2, nature, thumped, arrowed, and off-screened. That doesn't even make any sense. Gets arrowed, dies off screen, and possession. Okay, so now on to my overall thoughts of the film. Can't talk about this film without first saying this is a Fred Olen Ray film. And those of you who know who Fred Olen Ray is know the types of films that he makes. This one is a little less gratuitous than the rest of them, to be fair. But this movie is not a high caliber slasher by any means. This is a very cheesy, silly movie that tries its best to compete with some of the big boys and just sort of gives us this about average slasher film made in the desert. So Fred Olen Ray is known for making movies that are filled with nudity and filled with violence. A perfect example, which I go back to all the time, is the Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. So if you know of that film, or all it takes is a quick Google search, and then you can sort of understand the types of films that Fred Olen Ray makes. This is a straightforward slasher film, but done on a shoestring budget and seemingly a very inexpensive and easy place to shoot, with having the film take place in the desert. Seems good on paper, and then in reality, you're filming 16, 17-hour days, sweating your balls off, and then freezing your tits off at night. But this movie is chock full of a lot of things that I love. For one, right off the bat, is the ridiculous acting. When you watch this movie, you are just going to laugh a ton. Some of the things that are said and the way that they're said, you're like, that's not how people talk. I don't think that tone makes sense. It's not a very natural flowing conversation 90% of the time, which adds to the charm of this film because I have a blast with it. And the acting being so poor makes this a perfect film to watch with your buddies late at night with a bunch of candy. This is definitely my bread and butter for a late night viewing film. Has one of my all-time favorite horror movie tropes, the old stop at the gas station and get warned. Right off the bat, you know this is that movie. There's an old man running a gas station, an old Native American fellow comes out and says,
"You don't go down there. It's not safe down there."
And they go anyway, because you never listen to the old wise man at the gas station because he's slightly creepy. And anybody with the name Billy Ironwing, you should listen to. Another positive for this movie is that I really like the look of the villain. Yes, it's a facial prosthetic and the killer is in blue jeans and tennis shoes, but there's something so hokey and fun about it that I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I buy that. I'll go along for that. Sure. This movie does have sort of an original Evil Dead vibe to it. And by that I mean that it comes across as by any means necessary filmmaking. You have a location, you have X amount of hours, you have X amount of people on your staff or your crew, and you just push to get it done. So there's a very amateur guerrilla style filmmaking vibe to this movie. And sometimes that can really work. In this movie, in my opinion, I think it does work, even though there are a lot of shortcomings for this flick. A testament to how much fun this movie is that even though the acting is incredibly rough, there are actually some adorable character moments where you're like, ah, I kind of like that girl. I kind of like that guy. I kind of hope they hook up. I hope this works out for them. And it's a slasher movie, so you know that it never works out for anybody. But with some of those conversations and some of those exchanges, we actually get characters that are a little bit more fleshed out than your average cannon fodder horror teens. That being said, it's not perfect by any means. I'm just saying that they're fun characters and they have a little bit of range to them. This ain't Gone with the Wind, but you know. There is sort of an interesting morality tale involved in the plot of this film with the quandary, is that the right word? You're gonna question if it's okay for these lead characters to go to this place and dig up these Native American remains and arrowheads. And yes, it's an archaeological dig, but it sort of crosses the lines, whether you believe that it's okay because it's in the name of history and in the name of science, or should you just let those bodies rest and leave them be. So it is a very straightforward, run-of-the-mill, average slasher film. But there are some things sprinkled in there that make you go, yeah, I don't know, should you be digging up old Chief Woodenhead's sister? You know, like, you shouldn't do that, probably. Let them stay. They ain't hurting anything until they wake up and start hurting motherfuckers. But there are some weird things about this film, which if you look into the making of this film, you'll see that Fred Olen Ray had no control over some of the editing choices that were put into play. Notably, at the beginning of the film, there's a ton of weird flashes of the lead characters getting killed. So you see them dying before the actual movie starts, which can throw you off. And then there's the weird lion-headed man thing, which was just used in test footage that really had no business being in the movie, and somehow or another ends up getting cut into the movie, which makes some very confusing choices. And also they sort of splice in these green screen segments of an old Native American woman's face. It looks like the Silver Shamrock commercial with the fucking heads bouncing back and forth and nothing, you know, black space around. Really weird. That's like over top of the other footage, and you're going, I'm not sure what's happening, because maybe that's the spirit that possesses the character and then turns that character into a Native American killing machine. I'm not sure. And the film opens very fast. I think we have 2 kills and no dialogue before the title card. But despite the fact that it opens very fast with a couple of dead bodies, it takes a very long time for the actual killing to start up again. And, you know, that's because they're attempting to give us a lot of character development, which is fine, but in this case, since the runtime is so short, you kind of just want to get to the killing. That's one negative thing that I have to say about this film, although I have a blast with it and I know what's coming, so I just go along for the ride. But it is an excellent setting for a horror film, despite the fact that you are miles away from civilization, so you have to bring your cast and crew out every day and work into the wee hours of the night. But that isolation of the desert really works. You know, you take Wes Craven's The Hills Have Eyes, for example, and that's a great way to make a movie without a lot of money. I mean, yes, it's gonna be an arduous shoot. It's gonna be a motherfucker to make this movie, but the end result, you know, you really feel all that isolation. And this movie does a good job of that, just on a smaller scale, which another good thing about filming in the desert and doing it on the fly is you can shoot without permits, which is what a lot of these guys did, and Fred Olen Ray is no exception. Take the cast, the crew, to the desert, make sure nobody's around, and go. No permit. Just make the goddamn movie, sell that to your distributor, make your money back, and no one's the wiser. I love that mentality of the old school filmmakers, and that is another reason why this movie is so much fun to me. I don't have a lot of negative things to say about this movie, guys. It's a blast, top to bottom. Crazy Native American killing machine in blue jeans and Adidas. Ridiculous. And it's one of those movies that you need to see to believe. I can't really recommend it enough. So in my personal opinion, this movie is 100% popcorn as fuck, because it's exactly what it says it is. Scalps. It's a slasher movie with a Native American killing people. It's not great, but it's fun, and it's a good thing to have with all your buddies. This is a late night flick for sure. So if I have swayed you, click the link in the description and get a copy of Scalps today. But I suppose I should probably get going, because after all, there's a lot of movies out there. Somebody's got to watch them, so why not me, right?